Hi everybody, this is Professor West. Welcome back. Today we are still working with Alice, and I'm going to start teaching you about the code editor, which is how you can write the code that makes everything happen. Before we do that, let me explain a couple things to you. Alice is what we know as a object-oriented programming language, which means that objects like these people or buttons or other things control how the program's going to flow. So perhaps I tell it that if I click on this guy, I want him to move 2 steps to his right and then 1 step up. Something like that. So it would all be dependent on me clicking on this guy for that to happen, because he's the object and that would be controlling it. We do so by creating what we call methods. Now, don't let the term scare you. That's just a programming term. Think of a method as being a set of directions. So I told my guy to go over 2 steps to the right and then up 1 step higher. That would be my method. That would be my instructions. And that's all we're really talking about here. It'll get a little more involved than that at some point. But for now, that's good enough. Okay, when you add an object onto the screen, you're adding a single instance of that object. So let me explain what that means. Right now, I have a single instance of my alien person. If I were to add a second one exactly like that one, and this one's named Alien and that one will be named Alien 2, Alien number 2, then that would still be a single instance of Alien and a single instance of Alien 2. And I could have each one act independently and do whatever I want it to do. So that's very important. So even if I have 100 of them on there, I can have them all doing different things. Okay, so before we jump in, let me explain the parts of the window here that you're looking at. We have the camera view here. This shows us what the camera would see and allows us to set up our screen. Then we have the methods panel down here. These are all commands. Remember I told you that a method is basically a set of instructions for doing something. And that's what these are. These are all commands that we can use, and I could put this one and then maybe this one and then maybe this one and have it do each of those things. Up here's the editor window where we're going to edit the code and create the code. And then down here's the control panel. So we're going to add some of these commands at some point also. So the camera view up here, it contains the scene that we've been building in the scene editor when we went in to set up the scene. And there's a run button here. And when you click the run button, it tells it to do whatever we're going to tell it to do. So we'll do that in just a minute. The methods panel down here has all these different, let's call them tiles for now, or panels of instructions. And each one, when we move it into the program, will stay there until we remove it or until it finishes. So I'll explain that in just a minute. These are all preloaded tiles and commands. We can make our own later. But for now, we're going to stick to the preloaded ones, and that'll just make it easier. Okay, so let me explain right here where you see procedures and functions. Procedures are methods or directions that perform an action. So these procedures are methods that do something. This one's going to move to whatever we tell it to move to. This one's going to turn however we tell it to turn. Functions basically ask a question, or they compute a value. So get the height, that literally asks what is the height. Get the width, that literally asks what is the width. And all of these basically are going to get information to use in the program. This one's going to do stuff, this one's going to find out stuff. Now there's one more thing, and that is the objects menu. These are my objects. If you click on this little drop down here, these are all the different objects that I can choose right now. I could choose the entire screen. I could choose the ground. I could choose the camera. I could choose the alien that it's already chosen, or I could choose the cat. So if I wanted the camera to do something, I would choose this one. If I wanted the grass to do something, I would choose this one. And so on and so forth. The word "this" refers to the scene object. So right now I'm selected on the alien, so it says this dot alien. If I was selected on the grass, it would say this dot grass, or ground, or whatever. Different objects have different methods. So the camera is not going to have move to the Cheshire Cat like we did earlier. It's not going to have that exact same one where we had the alien. Remember, we had him move towards the cat and then become the same spot as the cat. Well, the camera won't do that because the camera needs to see from where we're at or whatever. So up here is what we call the editor panel. It's at the top right. You have three things. You have the scene, which is yellow, and then you have these two purple ones, initialize event listeners and my first method. Now we're going to get to what these are, but whenever you create a program, it automatically creates these three things for you. You can create more later. When you click the run button, my first method is where it starts. Let me get rid of these things and I'll show you. So yours probably looks like this right now, where there's nothing in it. So let's come over here, make sure you're clicked on procedures, make sure you're clicked on one of your people here. I'm clicked on the alien, and I'm going to come down and see how this one says say or think. Let me move that over just the tiniest bit. There you go. Say or think. So this one says say, this one says think. I'm going to grab this one and I'm just going to drag it right up here. And it says, oh, do I want it to say hello or do I want to have some custom text string? So I click custom text string and I'm going to say, how are you? Put a question mark in there and click OK. So now it says, this dot alien says, how are you? And then I'm going to grab the one that says think, and I'm going to put it up there. And it's going to do the same thing. Do I want to use hello or do I want to put my own thing? I'm going to think, I'm scared. I don't know why I put that, but I did, and I put an exclamation point. So he's going to say, how are you? And then he's going to think, I'm scared. If you hit the run button right now, it shows you a little screen and he says, how are you? And then it shows the thought bubbles and he says, I'm scared. You can restart it. How are you? I'm scared. And that's all there is. Click the X button and it'll go away. And then we can add more stuff to it. Oh, which direction you want to move? I'm going to put the move and I'm going to have him move to the right. 1.0. Now remember, to the right will not be my right. My right, he would move this direction. This is his right. So he's going to move that direction. How are you? I'm scared. Move in that way. He stepped a little further away from the cat. If I hit reset, it goes back to where he was. And then it says that and he moves again. So remember, I told him to move right to get him to move to my left because he's facing me. If he was turned around facing the other direction, then to the right would have had him move to his right, which would have been my right also. And by doing these things, you can create different interactions. So there's a whole lot here for you to choose from. You can resize things. You can set the opacity here. You could have moved over and disappeared, whatever. And you could have moved. You can have a lot of these in there. Oh, now I want the cat. I want the cat to say something. Don't go. I won't hurt you. So now when I run this, he's going to say, how are you? Oh, I'm so scared, and run away. And then he's going to say, don't go, I won't hurt you. And you can change all sorts of things here. You can change how long the text bubble stays up. You can change what all said in it. You can change all sorts of things. The last section I want to talk about is the control panel down here. This is going to give you more control over stuff. Now, we're not really going to get into this a whole lot right this minute, but this one tells it do the next steps in order. This one tells it make a loop that just keeps doing something. So if I had a guy dribbling a basketball, I could have it constantly dribbling the basketball, and then I could tell him move this way, move that way, and he would keep dragging the basketball while he's doing it. The last thing I'd like to point out is the comment. You can put a comment in your program. Comments are fantastic. They explain what's going on. So I could put the Cheshire Cat wants to eat this alien. And then that would help me remember that the next bit of code is going to be him trying to lure the alien back over here. Now, there's all kinds of reasons that you put comments into your program. Sometimes it's because if there's a lot of code, it can get confusing. And if you see the comments, they're just written in plain English, and they're ignored by the program when you run it. So it wouldn't see the comments when it runs it. But that would help me to know what's going on. Also, if I start this program and then I pass it off to somebody else, like at work or whatever, and they work on it for a while, the comments help them to understand what I was doing, where I was going with it, why I was doing certain things, and so forth. So it's always a good idea to add comments into your program that explains what's going on and why you're doing things the way you're doing them and so forth. The last thing I want to explain real quick is the initialize the event listeners. Now, an event listener is exactly like it sounds. It sits there and listens for an event to happen. An event could be clicking on something. If I click on this cat, I could tell it if I click on the cat, he grabs his stomach and falls over. Or if I click on the cat, he runs around in circles. Whatever. That's an event would be me clicking, and the listener sits there and listens for it and then does whatever code I put in here. That's all an event listener does. So we'll get into some of that later. I just wanted to point out that those are the three things that are up here. Most of what you're going to do right now, you're going to do in my first method. So let's stick to that. And I'll see everybody in the next video. Bye.